Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Welcome to the John Laughlin Common Sense Podcast. Great to be with you here today. I don't know if you caught the news, but we kind of made a little bit of news yesterday. We were announced a kind of a refocus, a reshifting, if you will, of the entire lieutenant governor's office. And let me back up a little bit. So, lieutenant governor's office, which has existed for a very long time, has kind of ballooned in scale over the years to the point where now we spend about $1.4 million annually for a lieutenant governor, which, I mean, many people have argued, include most notably Bob Healey, doesn't provide a lot of value to the state of Rhode Island because they go to ribbon cuttings, they go to groundbreakings, they do manage the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. They also manage the Plastics Recycling and Litter Control Board, very important work. They have some dotted line relationships to FEMA, but it's never really provided the value I believe it could to Rhode Island taxpayers. So that's why we announced yesterday that what we're going to do with this is we're going to basically create a lieutenant governor's office that I call one office, two jobs, zero new dollars. So for years, and I mean literally going back to 2002, for years, Rhode Islanders have been clamoring for an inspector general. And every year, the bill is held in committee. So what does that mean, John? Well, I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball on that. So both the House, Rhode Island House and Rhode Island Senate rules say that bills have to have a vote, right? That's the rule. Now, if that leads the layman to think, well, if they have to have a vote, that must be the up or down vote. Not so fast. So what they do is they vote every bill that comes into committee held for further study. Then at the very end of the session, the speaker, the Senate president, maybe not, the majority leader, decide which bills they want on the floor to be considered and which bills are going to languish and die in committee. So they instruct the committee chairman to reconsider bills held for further study so that they can get them on the floor. And they do a reconsideration vote. And then once they do the reconsideration vote, the bill is either voted up or down on the House floor. And typically, the speaker and the Senate president don't bring bills to the floor unless they know they're going to pass. So they buried the inspector general. In fact, even one of the Democrats running for lieutenant governor presided over the committee that buried the inspector general. So that's how long that's been going on. And it's every year they do it. So I've decided instead of hiring the usual political cronies to staff the office, which every lieutenant governor does, my cousin Vinny, my brother-in-law, Phil, who can't get a job, I'll give him a job, a title, and he can work in the lieutenant governor's office because what could he break? I'm going to hire experienced and certified auditors and investigators into that office. I've got a head count of 7 or 8, depending upon how you split the baby. And I'm able to bring those individuals in and basically define their work role. So the number one job is typically the chief of staff in the lieutenant governor's office. Our chief of staff is going to be a certified inspector general / auditor. Okay. And then he's going to be supported by deputy auditors, senior inspectors, and junior inspectors and investigators. And what they're going to do is they're going to basically go out and look for stuff like duplicate payments. They're going to look for fraud. They're going to look for waste. They're going to look for excessive change orders. They're going to look for potential criminal activity even. And for the first time, Rhode Island will have an inspector general. And here's the best part. It doesn't cost anything in new dollars. We're already paying for the office. Why don't we get some actual value out of the office? Well, what do you mean by actual value, John? Well, I'll tell you. That's what I do. I'll tell you what I mean. So what we're looking at, if we save 1%, which seems like a pretty modest goal, if we can identify 1% of savings in the lieutenant governor's office with the new role of inspector general, that equates to $14 to $15 million, depending upon how you look at the budget, because we're at a $15 billion budget right now, approaching $16 billion. And so literally that office would pay for itself times 10. Now, Bob Healey, who I got to know Bob, was a great guy. His plan was to eliminate the office and thereby save $1.4 million. Wouldn't it be better to transform that office and imagine making 10, 12, 14, $15 million? And that's at the low end. We can do much better than that. Let me give you a couple of details about this. You can see right here, this is the organizational chart. We've got that up on the screen, and you can see there aren't any political cronies on there. I do have an assistant because I don't want to be late for my plastics recycling and litter control board meetings. I want to make sure I'm on time for that. And I also want to make sure that we do what needs to be done for the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council and the Small Business Advocacy Group. So in seriousness, we do need a little help getting that done. And everything we do is going to be completely transparent to the public. All findings will be released in clear, accessible public reports through a new Rhode Island website called Rhody Report. And we'll do regular press briefings. I'll even do podcasts as Lieutenant Governor to be able to keep you up to date what's going on. And it basically puts the truth in your hands. So I know what you're saying, or what some are going to say. They say, well, we already have an auditor general, so we really don't need an inspector general. And that's kind of what they've hidden behind for years. You got to understand the auditor general has a slightly different role. Their role is to review the financial statements. And that's pretty much it. So it's whatever you give them, they'll review and they'll audit that for you. The other thing you need to understand is that the auditor general is a creature of the General Assembly. How is that, John? Well, they're funded by what's called the JCLS, which is the Joint Committee on Legislative Services. So their budget comes from the General Assembly. And I'm not going to say that that would make them less likely to find problems in the General Assembly, but that certainly could be the thing. And every dollar recovered from fraud, waste, inefficiency can be redirected to priorities like schools. They can be redirected to tax cuts. How about that? How about give some of this money back? And the cool thing about the Lieutenant Governor's office is I've got a completely flexible budget. So I've got the ability to be able to do that and provide that government oversight and accountability. So, if the General Assembly is unwilling, and they've certainly proven themselves to be unwilling to give us an inspector general, it's time that somebody stepped up and did it. And that's exactly what we're going to do when I'm elected Lieutenant Governor. You will have an inspector general, certified inspector general, along with certified inspectors to be able to do this. Now, the tools that we have vary, right? Because it depends on who we all vote for governor, to be honest with you. If we make a choice of a governor who wants to stonewall the office, we're not out of bullets. We're certainly not out of gas because we've got the ability to do what's called ARPA requests. And ARPA requests it's like a Freedom of Information Act on the federal side, but it's on the state side where we're able to get and compel agencies to deliver because it's our data. At the end of the day, it belongs to the people of Rhode Island. We paid for it. So we're able to use ARPA requests. One of the other things that can be incredibly valuable is to use whistleblowers. And when we'll have a whistleblower hotline. And so when we get whistleblowers in, and a lot of people don't realize this about the Lieutenant Governor's office, the Lieutenant Governor can swear them in under oath. So if we've got a really hot whistleblower that seems to have incredibly credible evidence, we can bring him into the office, swear that whistleblower in under oath, and be able to get that investigation started and bring that investigation to a conclusion. So this is going to be a whole completely different rewrite of the Lieutenant Governor's office in a way that finally, for the first time, provides value for our taxpayers. I'm John Laughlin. This is the Common Sense Podcast. And once again, this podcast is paid for by the friends of John Laughlin. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.